Anyway, sorry about that. I got things got shifted around there, and I got cut off mid rant. But what I was saying is, guys who cause problems, and then a business. Like in my case, I was talking specifically about the scrap metal business I did for quite a few years back when it was still really profitable. Um, I'm at Last Dual Park in Perth right now. There's the building where the showers are, where the washroom and the showers are. Anyway, guys who cause problems like that, what happens is they give the government an excuse to come in and regulate. And once that happens, it gets ruined. I don't know what's going on over there with the things being blocked off. There must be something going on, though. But maybe they're going to do something there. I don't know. Anyway, like with the scrap metal, the main issues were guys who were engaging in theft, stealing stuff off construction sites and whatnot. And the other problem with scrap metal was guys there was a certain amount of infighting over territory and whatnot. Like a guy's walking down the road picking cans, out of the ditches, and another guy comes along and says, "You got to move on. This is my road," and it's a public road. The way I always looked at it is, if you want to pick on that road, you need to get up earlier and get there before the other guy gets there. That's all. Now, when I was doing it, there wasn't a lot of competition. In fact, when I first started it, I was pretty much the only one around here doing that. And people would stop and ask me what I was doing because it was weird. Eventually, I noticed more and more were doing it. But probably as times got tougher and so on. But here's the thing, though. When people engage in those kinds of activities, when people create conflict, or when people are engaged in theft and stuff like that, it gives the government the opportunity to regulate. They can then turn around and regulate it because they have an excuse then. They can say, well, look, there's been violence. There's been theft. It's a problem. So now we got to come in and regulate it. Now, they want to regulate everything. They want to have control over everything. They want to tax everything. They want to charge fees for everything. They want to use everything as an excuse to provide their corrupt friends with jobs and so on, with high-paying jobs, and thus have their corrupt friends sell their crap that we don't need and so on. And so these guys that were doing that were setting us all up for problems. Plus, it's just gross. I mean, don't steal. It's just a nasty thing to do, to steal. Some guy's doing a building project, and some a-hole comes in and steals all his copper. He's got that all there to do his project. Now he can't do his project. He's got to order more copper. That adds to the budget. It adds to the bills. He can't do anything now because he was going to do something with the copper, going to put the wires into the place or whatever, and now he can't until he gets more copper. So now you've just screwed that guy badly. And no, I don't agree with that. I think it's just a terrible thing to do. But over and above all that, it does give government an excuse to come in and regulate. And the last thing I wanted to see was that anybody walking the roads picking cans or whatever was going to have a license, take a safety course, and maybe have to buy their territory from the government, actually have to pay to pick on certain roads and so on, and probably have to buy safety gear from some company ran by a friend of the government and so on. And so for me, I just didn't like guys who operated that way anyway. But and you see that in any kind of an endeavor, anytime there's money being made, you'll get certain people that just can't stay within the lines, that have to go into these shady areas and do these shady things. Anyway, and we had quite a few of them. By the time I finished doing scrap metal, there was more and more in it. And of course, the more people you have in something, the more you're going to have of the good and the bad. There were lots of good guys doing scrap metal. They weren't all jerks, but some of them were. Anyway, in the first video that got cut off, I explained about how I think that cop that followed me yesterday might have suspected me of stealing material out of the scrap metal pile. That's probably because he saw me leave there, so that may be why he followed me. I don't really know. I'm sure he noticed when he went by, though, that there was more stuff in there when I left than there was when I arrived, because he's probably been up and down that road. And the thing is that those people that own that particular scrapyard, well, there's a kind of an underworld connection there that I'm not going to get into too much, but there is. And they actually have cops on their payroll. Like, if you run afoul of these people, even if you haven't broken the law, if you were to offend these people, they have cops who they can send after you to punish you for doing that. You know, it's a real thing. They're grading the road over there is what's happening on that side of the river. But yeah, anyway, so who knows? Maybe this guy's on their payroll. Maybe he's watching their place and he saw me leaving there and, you know, thought, what's this asshole doing? You know, what kind of mischief is he getting up to? Anyway, I have a feeling that's the reason I got followed yesterday, because I noticed when I met the cop the second time, he didn't bother me. He just went on past me. And he'd be mad at me for getting away from him the first time, you know. So, I mean, I would imagine that he didn't come after me the second time because he knew that I hadn't stolen any material, that the pile actually grew after I left. So, you know, when I left there was more stuff in there, because that generator I dumped there stands out like a sore thumb, a great big yellow generator. So I would imagine he realized that I wasn't up to no good. Anyway, there's a hornet on my windshield. Oh, there he goes. All right. Anyway, I just wanted to say that. I think that's why I got followed yesterday by the cop, and why he didn't bother me the second time. Because he had been past the scrap metal pile at least once after he followed me. And he's probably been past it a few times prior to following me. So, you know, and he probably is one of those who's on the payroll, you know, who's been hired by these people to watch their place and to do their bidding, basically. Anyway, that's it for now. I hope you're all doing well. I'm going to go in and take a shower. I am. And get myself cleaned up. And we'll see you all later.